Hi, my name is Neil Thomason, Executive Director of the Connecticut Film and TV Conference 2024. I want to thank you for taking the time to learn more about the film and television industry here in Connecticut and the region. But before we get to our panel, I want to thank our host, Goodwin University, for providing a clean and safe space. This event was brought to you by the Connecticut Film and TV Alliance in partnership with Joe Young Entertainment. Please check out our sponsors, Chair 10, Firesight Films, Actors Gym, Flickvana, Connecticut Film Office, Shadow Veil Productions, Angel Eyes Productions, Connecticut School of Broadcasting, JT Design, 48 Hour Film Fest, UCONN Digital Media and Design, Connecticut River Valley Chamber of Commerce, IATSE Local 52, Camera Bar, Chamber Insurance Trust, Soundtrack, Utility Communication, and Clock Tower Tax Credits. Thanks again to our sponsors. Without them, this event would not be possible. So please enjoy the educational panel.
The agenda for tonight's panel talk is Future of Storytelling Through the Visual Medium and the Role of Education. My name is Musawir Abrar. I am a screenwriter and filmmaker currently pursuing my MFA in Digital Media and Design at the University of Connecticut with a focus on film production. As a student of the visual medium, I am constantly fascinated by the medium's enormous capacity for storytelling and its unparalleled impact on its viewers. To be able to better utilize and to efficiently use this medium, we'll refer to our experts on the panel tonight. And before I kick off this discussion, I'd like to thank our esteemed panelists and have a round of applause for them. As well as for amazing and energetic participants who chose to be a part of this conference. A round of applause for yourselves. On our expert panel tonight, we have Mr. Roger Clark sitting right beside me. Roger Clark is the performer and actor behind the beloved character Arthur Morgan in the popular video game Red Dead Redemption 2. Roger won the Best Performance Award at the 2018 Game Awards and was nominated for a BAFTA Games Award in 2019. He has studied theatre, media, and drama in the UK. Roger has been a professional actor for stage, screen, voiceover, and performance capture for over 20 years and has worked and performed in almost 50 countries. Roger is currently serving as a part of the game design and development faculty at the Quinnipiac University. Welcome, Roger. Oh, yeah. Next up, we have Professor Heather Elliott-Famularo. Professor Heather Elliott-Famularo is an award-winning filmmaker and digital artist working in documentary film, video installation, photography, and digital humanities. As Department Head of Digital Media and Design at the University of Connecticut, she led the creation of the first film production major at UCONN in 2018. Her most prominent UCONN collaborations include the Human Rights Film and Digital Media Initiative, the NSF-funded Eco Digital Storytellers Program, a digital public history minor, and work with UCONN Athletics. Through serving on the board of the CT Film and TV Alliance and as co-PI of Digital Media Connecticut, she is committed to building the film industry. Welcome, Professor Elliott-Famularo. Next up, we have Professor Blythe Frank. Blythe, of course. Blythe Frank is a creative producer with over 20 years of experience in the film and television industry. Her work is primarily focused on feature films, but also includes television development, documentaries, and commercials. She holds an MFA in creative producing from Columbia University and is currently a full-time professor and director of the Cinematic Production Management Master's Program at the Quinnipiac University. Welcome, Professor Frank. Next up, we have Dr. Philip Fox. Dr. Philip Fox is the director of the media production programs at CT State Community College, Middlesex. With over 15 years of experience in higher education, Dr. Fox is dedicated to fostering an innovative and inclusive learning environment that prepares students for success in digital media industries. Dr. Fox leads the Center for New Media, a vibrant hub for hands-on learning in audio, video, and content creation. Beyond his administrative and teaching roles, Dr. Fox actively collaborates with local media organizations to create real-world opportunities for students. Welcome, Dr. Fox. And finally, we have Mr. Mark Rupert. Mark Rupert is an event producer, film director, and actor. While between film projects in 2001, Mark created the now popular 48-hour film project, a filmmaking scramble where teams of creatives write, shoot, and edit short films within a weekend. His 48-hour film project has found a place in over 120 cities around the world, with more than 1 million people having participated and more than 85,000 films having been created so far. Mark heads the international organization that coordinates over 125 producers globally. His developed arts program are currently operating across 40 countries. Welcome, Mr. Mark Rupert.
Thank you.
So I can see that there are a lot of fans of all the panelists we have. I believe this is the most popular panel we have so far, which is very nice. I would like to really begin with the very basics, if I may. And for that reason, I would like to ask, how important is telling stories to you? And how did you learn the craft of storytelling through the visual medium?
I love telling stories. First of all, thank you everyone for being here. It was such a wonderful evening, and I saw some awesome panels this evening, and it's so encouraging to see so many people turn out for Connecticut Film. I think it's fantastic, and yeah, it's just wonderful to share this whole evening with all of you. But yes, I love storytelling, and as technology further advances, there's more and more different ways to tell it. There's more and more ways to immerse our audience in it. But for me, I started out in theater, and for me, I think that was the best place to learn how to tell stories, because the audience is literally right there. I often think, if you can learn to listen to them as well as they should be listening to you, then that helps you become a better storyteller. And I'm very grateful to have started out in theater, to do the same play every night to a different audience, and realize, oh, well, that joke didn't quite land very well this evening. I wonder how I can improve upon it tomorrow. And that sort of environment and that sort of medium really helped me with all the other mediums that I was lucky enough to work on as well.
I started out in photography, went into computer graphics, video, film, etc. So that's kind of my background, hence, digital media and design. But I mean, storytelling, I mean, it's in everything. I think that's what's really exciting is that, film is one medium, but we can tell storytelling obviously now on social media, in a game, in a marketing commercial. I mean, we've seen a huge variety of new methods and ideas about telling stories. And I think what's most exciting is expanding students' minds to think about what the future is, because, in my, 25 something year career, it's changed so much, right? There's all these new mediums that didn't exist. So it's this idea of like, what's going to be in the future. And I think this is what's exciting about this industry now is that like, if you love learning and you love new technologies and you're excited about, you don't know what the next possible thing is, there's a place for you. And that's the kind of people I think we hope to attract to this industry.
Thank you. I think storytelling is the engine of the world, right? It's the impact that we have on everyone around us. I think it's a thing that sparks, the community that we live in. And I also started out in theater, and then studied comparative literature. And I think that what you realize about the world that we live in and the texture is that everything is interconnected, and that you can learn one discipline, but if you kind of connect to your own individual place in the world and your vision, that there are so many different ways that you can interpret that into storytelling. And I agree that we're at this really exciting juncture with an industry that's constantly changing, and evolving that we also need to evolve with it. And we are on the precipice of so many different exciting ways with virtual production, with AI technologies and platforms that are emerging right now. But I think staying nimble and keeping our eyes open and connected to what's happening around us, this is the way that we all continue to connect and educate ourselves and continue to tell stories.
I was working in the production studio the other day with a few students of mine, and I had a new student who came in and said, "I want to be a YouTuber, an influencer." And I said, "That's great. Sounds really great. Let's go down to the studio." And I turned the cameras on. I said, "Go ahead, be a YouTuber." And he just sort of sat there and looked at me. And he said, "Well, it's all impromptu, right? I'm just gonna make some things up." And he started talking. Yeah. And I said, okay. And, we ended, we hit press record. I said, "Let's do playback." And, we watched it for a few seconds. He said, "God, that's awful." I said, "Yeah, it is awful. Do you think TikTok is scripted? Do you think YouTube is scripted? Do you think there's stories there?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, yeah." I said, "Yeah, and that's the whole point of this. You can have the best technology in the world. You can have a fancy 6K, 8K, 20,000K camera, the best audio in the world, but the story is really where it's at. And that's what people come for. And so, story is that skill that will probably never be replaced."
I just have to echo what Phil said, because what we have seen from year one doing the 48-hour film project is that the story rules, right? It's unbelievable the technological changes since that first year doing the 48 and people actually submitting their films on tape. And now everybody has access to great cameras, to great editing. The technique of filmmaking is very well known. So everybody's film is going to look good. So what sets them apart? Your story. So that is it. So if you're going to invest time in something, that's what you want to invest time in. How do you create? How do you become a writer, a story creator, storyteller?
Thank you. Since it's already been brought to attention regarding the new emerging formats of media and this critical juncture where we observe these new formats of media, I'd like to ask Roger, looking back at your own career, how would you advise a budding actor, performer today in terms of exploring different forms of media? Should they be going for performance capture auditions as much as they do for feature film auditions? How open should they be in terms of exploring these emerging formats of media and entertainment?
Yeah, the whole nature of auditioning has changed so much since COVID. It used to be you'd walk into the casting director's office and you'd be able to pick their brains, and this casting director would have had a chat with the director or the producer, and they would have had intimate firsthand knowledge as to what the role needed, or what the director was looking for in the role. And now it's become so much more of a shot in the dark. It is more convenient in the sense that you can do your self-tape at home with a phone and just send it in. But it's a bit of a gamble now. We don't have the luxury that we once did. It does have its advantages in that if we don't like what we do, we could just do it again. But some of the more obsessive of us means that it never gets done. But going back to your question, I'm very passionate about performance capture. I think it's really amazing, and I like to raise awareness about it, especially considering how it's being used more and more, especially within video games and now film as well. And I've done a lot of it in the past, and it's still relatively new for a lot of performers. Most of the performers I work with in a performance capture environment, it's the first or the second time that they've done it. So I like to raise awareness about that, and I think that actors should pursue those when they get the chance. Because so often, when you audition for a video game, it's always the same video game. It's called Untitled Video Game Project. And you don't know what you're auditioning for. They'll give you specs for what the role is, but again, shot in the dark. So it's now up to us a little more than it used to be to trust our instincts and to learn to ask the right questions and to stop doubting ourselves, you know? So often we question ourselves and what we do, but I think well, what's very important is to have faith in yourself and in your abilities as we explore all of these new different mediums that are literally evolving in front of our very eyes. It's a very exciting time. It's also a very scary time too, as we see new tools emerge in the industry. And one thing that we can all agree on is that these new tools are going to irrevocably change everything, but it's very difficult to agree on how it's going to change everything. So I guess time will tell. But in the meantime, all we can do is hone our craft and learn to trust ourselves, and if we screw it up, learn from your mistakes.
Thank you. Which offers me the perfect segue to Professor Heather. As the head of Digital Media and Design Department, where you have concentrations including UI UX design, game design, film, 3D animation, what exactly made you realize that the future of media is interdisciplinary?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been really exciting to be able to lead a program which has so many different forms of media and the way that they impact each other, right? So when we redid our curriculum, 5 years ago, we really realized like all these, like Roger's saying, these changing technologies, and it's not enough to be an expert in one technology, right? So we really focus on problem solving, because how are you going to learn new technology if you don't know how to solve problems? And storytelling. So we developed a really, I think, amazing first year experience where the students go through all kinds of storytelling. They're doing interactive storytelling, story through still image, story through video, story through animation, and they have to kind of go through and try all these things so they have a taste of what that's like. And that really has led to a lot of different kind of experiences where we have the students working in different media. So, for example, we've got the motion capture studio, and we can get students coming in and working on gathering that data and importing that into their game or into their animations. But even things like I noticed, if you've noticed the beautiful new logo for the Connecticut Film Alliance, our students in their agency class, were able to design that, right? And so I've also realized how great it is that we have designers and filmmakers, because your films look better, right, when you have good lower thirds and you have good credits and good title sequences and things like that, and understanding how they work. So it's kind of like through that experience of seeing design, interactivity, photography, film, all of that together, they're really getting a sense of the whole picture. And, as we know, even if you get on set or anywhere, any kind of experience in production, like the more you understand about the full process and the whole production pipeline, the more prepared you're going to be for envisioning what this could possibly look like. Maybe you never imagined you would put an animated sequence in the middle of the film, but suddenly you understand how that works. And so it creates new possibilities of like how you can tell your story that you may not have thought of before for some kind of dramatic moment or, effects and things like that. I do think the virtual production thing is going to be, obviously huge. I think what Roger's been talking a lot about, actors trying to, record their performances. I mean, even as directors, right? Like, what does that look like when you're not on set and you're in a black box and you have to figure out how to direct your actors to do stuff? So all of that kind of problem solving and thinking outside of the box and understanding how sort of things under the hood work, I think is really important. And we've just noticed that a lot of times students from really different fields, because it's not very typical to have all of those programs in one. A lot of times film is sort of in its own school, separate from design and media. So it's been really cool to be able to witness sort of what's possible when you bring all that together.
I'd like to open the same question to the rest of the panel. How important, helpful do you think is cross-disciplinary collaboration for young digital media makers?
Is that for me?
All of you. Blythe, Phillips, and Mark.
I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
You think about content creation, and the interdisciplinary nature here is, what content, right? there's a fascinating story I heard here at Goodwin with a nursing, nursing student asking, why do I need to take a literature course? A nursing instructor saying back, what are you going to talk to your patients about, right? So, as a filmmaker, as an audiologist, the interdisciplinary fact is you have to know the art you're trying to put on the screen, and the best way to do that is to take the courses and have the experiences. And I would say the other thing about it is, in some of the skills that you learn in other places are transferable, like process or workflow. Workflows are very important. It's often overlooked, and you learn certain workflows in other disciplines that you can then begin to think about your own workflow in media creation. I'll tell a brief story. I seem to be full of stories tonight. I was, again, working with another student who we were working off a USB drive, putting some audio files together. Really what I am is a musician at heart. I play many instruments and many local area bands, love music, live music. And I was sitting in front of the C24 Pro Tools, and the student plugged in his drive and said, help me organize this. And every single piece of file on that track was labeled Untitled 1, Untitled 2, Untitled 3, Untitled 4. And I could have unplugged it and said, come back when this shit is organized, right? But I actually had a really good question because I knew that this student was taking an English class. And I said, what is the process that you go through to write a paper in your English class? We have this draft, this idea stage. Can you apply that to this particular production? Oh yeah, I can see what you're talking about. Maybe I ought to label these tracks drums version 1, drums version 2, So it's a great opportunity to just see that interdisciplinary nature and the fact of having other courses and just being a well-rounded person and going through and seeing those skills that are transferable.
Well, I want to answer the questions speaking of the different pieces of film and video productions. So if you go back 20, 30 years, it was much more specialized, right? You would have, you liked sound, you liked editing, and you were specialists, and then the specialists all come together in this great collaborative art, which is filmmaking. Well, more and more, you have to be a generalist where you are doing all the pieces of it, right? If you're doing your own YouTube channel or what have you. So there are really two main reasons why you should be having a broad education in this stuff. Number one, so that you could do it all if you had to. And number two is you don't know what you love until you try a little bit of everything and really figure out what you love, right? And then just to kind of go from that next step, you're getting the education. So then what happens? Well, you gotta actually do it. Get out there and put yourself out there doing whatever that project is.
Thank you. Add very quickly. I think that when we look at creating film or television, it is interdisciplinary in and of itself. And what we focus on in our program is really understanding the full production pipeline and how all the pieces work together. And I think that, especially for students, that it has to be a journey of discovery in terms of some people come into the program and they know exactly what they want to do. And sometimes that changes. And I think that you have to be exposed to all the different pieces of that pipeline, whether it's creative development or it's physical production, you're line producing, or you're working in post-production, sales, distribution, and marketing. There are so many different opportunities within this ecosystem that I think that allowing students to be exposed to all of it also helps them choose their path. And sometimes you don't know who you are and what you want to do until you actually see it and work on it and have some time to interface with it. So I think just the process of being in the program can be very helpful in that capacity.
Thank you. Mark,
Could you share a bit about the origin story of this unique 48-hour film project? And now that you've done it in over 100 cities around the world, what is the single most important thing you have learned from it about filmmaking education?
All right, so the origin story, I read an article about two women who had started one of the first 24-hour theater competitions where you had to write, rehearse, and perform a play, a short play. And I immediately thought, this is cool. I mean, just what a creative concept. I thought it would be neat doing it in video. I knew almost immediately we needed more than 24 hours, so 48 was born. But when I actually had the first concept, it was impossible to do this yet because the technology wasn't there. This was in '98. And so in 2001, finally enough people had some desktop editing and the price of cameras had come down, and that was where we could first try it. And we did it in Washington, D.C., not knowing if it was even possible to make a short film in 48 hours. And if you could anybody else stand to sit through it? And unfortunately, the answer was yes. In terms of the most important thing, oh gosh, there's a lot of things that are important about it, but I'm going to go back to what I said in my last answer. It's getting out there and doing it, right? So you've gotten all the great theory in your classes, and you want to get out, make that film, get that experience of being on the set. You know, do you love it? Do you hate it? What do you love about it? And then, most importantly of all, you attend your screening and you see it on the big screen with an audience. And are they laughing at the right place? Are they laughing at the wrong place? Et cetera, et cetera. The education factor of being in that audience is everything.
Great. I'd like to ask Blythe, going into your MFA with an award-winning film off-season, and then producing another film from your thesis there, for which you won the Best Producers honor at the Columbia Film Festival. How did you get your first project, both before the MFA and after the MFA, up and running? What was it process like? And what advice can you offer to students who are working on their first serious project?
That's a really big question. So, before I attended Columbia and applied to the MFA program, I was in theater for many years, and I had my own theater company. And so I was just sort of this kid who wanted to make things, even from the time I was very young. And I would get all the neighborhood kids together and be like, we're going to do this play, we're going to do this crazy stuff. But when I had been working in theater. I was back in the States because I'd been living in London and Paris. And then I wanted to just make a movie. And it really tied together all the things that I loved. It was about storytelling. It was about working with people. It was about reaching an audience. It was about having impact. And it was very dynamic. And so I worked with my best friend, and we wrote a short film, and we raised the money, and we made the film, and it got accepted to festivals and won awards. But I knew I didn't know enough. And that's when I went into the program at Columbia. From there, it was a springboard into working professionally. And I feel like I missed the second part of your question, so I feel like I'm going off on another tangent here.
It was a long question, to be fair.
I know.
It was about how did you got your first project up and running? How did you gather the team? How did you get everything going? The dynamics of creating a first serious project when you're not exactly aware of the requirements, what things you need to get done. How did you get that project rolling?
Oh, it's interesting because it's kind of a crash course, and I knew some things from working in theater and some things that came to me organically, but we had a professional crew on that first film. I had been exposed to the industry prior to that, and so it wasn't a perfect process, but I think that we did well enough so that when I came out of film school that I knew more, and it was a series of opportunities in practicing my craft. And I think the more that you understand how things actually work and who you need to hire and how a crew is structured and how a budget is structured and what a schedule is supposed to look like, you have to understand the mechanics in order to make a successful film. It's not just about storytelling. It's also about the actual physical production and all the components that go into it. So it's a process, and I think you have to practice, and I think that, you know, we did pretty well on the first time out of the gate, but you know, I went from there to producing feature films, and I think that you have to, you know, kind of take the leap at a certain point and just say, I'm going to do this, and then, you know, you can bring it together.
Right. And I think a very relevant question would be about networking, which is a rather essential requirement in our industry, right? It's not an option. So how did you guys first network when you were starting out, and how do you do it today?
I still struggle, to be honest. Sometimes, you know, when you meet fellow like-minded colleagues, you know, it's a wonderful thing. And when you share passion, you know, that's a very easy gateway into forming relationships, much like this evening, you know. But there are other times too where you feel a little daunted, and it can be quite difficult. But for me, the joy is in the doing, and when you are working, you know, you're side by side along with the people that you should and want to network with. So I embrace those relationships, and I try to maintain them, and I try to remind myself that nothing grows overnight, you know, and sometimes these relationships can fruition in the most unanticipated ways, and you know, what can be some intern 5-6 years ago could end up being your partner on the next feature that you're working on next month. And, you know, that's why it's always nice I try to remind myself to greet everyone with the same passion as what we all have, you know, when we're telling these stories. But I still get nervous every once in a while, especially if it's someone that I really look up to. I'm like, oh my gosh. But then, you know, I try to remind myself, you know, we're all in the same boat, and so many of us are literally making it up as we go along.
Anyone else on how did you used to network and how do you do it today?
Well, since this is an education panel, I will just say, like, events like this obviously are really great because I think there's a tendency to look at, like, LinkedIn is great for networking, and, you know, we talk about it for making connections, but it's not the same as the conversations you had tonight, right? So I think finding more opportunities to bring us together is really important. From an education standpoint, there's a few really great festivals and conferences, you know, the Broadcast Education Association conference, which is in Las Vegas every April, in affiliation with the National Association of Broadcasters, is an incredible event. It's also got a wicked pool, if you're a geek like me, equipment person, 10 miles like of amazing stuff. I mean, I was there when, you know, in 2000 when they released the first GoPro and they sold out in like 2 minutes. They didn't know what they were doing. It's like really wild. And when they introduced HDTV, like this, I mean, I'm really old. So when they introduced, you know, high definition television, it was like mind blowing. So like something like that, plus it's in Las Vegas. It's a really great event. And then there's the University Film Video Association, you know, that travels to different cities every year, is another really good event. They also have competitions as part of that. So if you're making films, they have, like, BEA has the Festival of Media Arts. It's juried by faculty. It's a great way to get your film out there and to meet people. UFVA also has a competition and also has scholarships and things for students too. So definitely look for these, you know, national level, but we need to do our job here of connecting our students across the state.
And I would say just every opportunity to leave your house and be around people and show up at events is time well spent. You know, I lead a travel course at the Cannes Film Festival with our students, and we're there for 2 weeks. They do an internship, they meet companies, they network. But it's just showing up. I mean, get out to where the industry is happening. Go to the film festivals, you know, whatever ones you can get to. Even if you meet one person, have a conversation, they might remember you. You can keep in touch with them. Every networking opportunity is very valuable.
Yeah, and when I to make my first 2 films. It was because I went to a DC filmmakers networking event and met somebody who had a couple of scripts, and I was looking to direct, and that's how it went. So I can't stress enough what my fellow panelists have said, getting out to an in-person event, because the LinkedIn networking isn't going to do it for you. The film festivals are great. We've got a guy down in Florida who's gotten almost every single one of his 48-hour films into different festivals, and picking up on what one of my colleagues said. We also have now a very specific college 48 competition, which happens in February. We did the first one last year. We actually had a team from Quinnipiac in it, so I challenged the rest of my panelists to get teams in it this year. But this is something that's only for college students in the U.S. And what we do, besides having an industry panel of judges selecting the winner, we also do a college film madness bracket. So the tournament bracket to determine the audience winner. So your college goes up against another college to see who advances based on the audience vote online. And there's some cards in the back of the room if you want to pick them up.
One of the great things about an event like this is norming what I thought once I hit 500 connections on LinkedIn, I could quit and go home. But I think what I'm hearing is there's something a little bit more to the world and that. One of the things that we pride ourselves on in the Center for New Media is internships. One of the things that we do try to do is place all of our students in an internship. And one of the things that I do as the internship coordinator is encourage folks on an internship to make connections with people in the organization, even those that may not be doing the thing that they're doing. And I think there are plenty of opportunities to do that in the media business for certain. You could be on set talking to any number or member of the crew about what they do or what they like to do, not just about the reason why you're there. So it's, we're mentioning networking, and it really is an ability to start a conversation. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, that stuff sounds really exhausting to me. Being in a sort of a little neurodiverse and sort of introverted myself, I would normally take my wife to something like that, and she would start the conversation. She's not here tonight, my small children, but I think that having a little bit of awareness of yourself and how you see yourself is really important too. I know that about myself, so I do actually tend to reach out to people more virtually or have a follow-up over an email or something, and that's comfortable for me. So I would add to that piece of networking, always representing yourself as your most authentic.
Given the fact that we have so much academic experience on the panel, I think a relevant question is that what forms the biggest gap between freshly graduating students and the industry? Because there are a lot of graduating students who find it tough to find a place within the industry because either they're unaware of the exact needs of the market or there are other reasons. How do you think we can optimize this pipeline, and what exactly forms this gap and how to bridge it?
Did you say gamut?
The gap.
Again.
Yes. The gap between industry and our universities. How can we possibly bridge that?
I think one of the things that is interesting is it's hard to be humble when you're a creative type sometimes. And I encourage humility when you start. Walking in the door, saying you'll be the next Steven Spielberg or have 5 million followers on YouTube in an hour, probably not the best way to start a conversation. Although it's exciting and you do want to follow your passions. We heard a lot of that conversation tonight. I think there are a lot of people who are genuinely interested in people who work hard and do follow their passions. So have that dream, but also have the desire to work hard. The students that come out of our program have that mentality because we insist on it. So I think that's the way, in some ways, to bridge a gap, just to be known as someone who's coming from a program or a university that's done work and is put in time and is also willing to work in any job, really, as long as it leads to the next job that can lead to the next project, that can lead to the thing that will make him their dream come true.
That's a good point. Yes, humility definitely has a place, but so often we feel like we have to be the opposite to get seen. But I think it poses a specific challenge for creatives and artists to enter the professional industry. And one of the things I think that can be quite crippling or paralyzing is doing something yourself, getting your name out there. And I was speaking to someone this evening, and I said, the longest journey begins with one step, and very often the scariest thing is to just start. But once you do start, there is an unexpected momentum that will happen, I promise you. And then before you know it, you will have something that you can use as a doorstop to the industry, as a calling card. And even if you don't, you will have made plenty of mistakes to have learned from. One of the things that I try to remind myself about is that often I fear that, I've lost complete objectivity on what I'm doing. I don't know if this is any good or not. But art isn't objective, You can't really do it objectively. So keep faith in yourself and in the story that you want to tell. And if it means enough to you, I guarantee you it will mean something to somebody else as well.
I'll take a totally different approach because I love hearing all of that. I think it takes a village, right? And I can just say that I am, and I think everybody up here is fully committed to trying to do everything we can to build the film industry in the great state of Connecticut. And as educators, we need to make connections with all of the filmmaking companies, make it attractive. We need to know that people can get their talent because we're producing it here in the state of Connecticut. They can get their crews here. They can get their actors here. They can get every aspect of the film production done. And so, one of the things that I think is really important is making those connections in schools. So internships, which we mentioned quite a bit, I think are really important, getting that real world experience, but also making those connections so that they can often go off and get hired by those same companies afterwards as well. So I just want to encourage everyone here who has connections, to reach out to your local universities to sort of talk about opportunities. I get cold called a lot at UCONN where production comes to the last minute, hey, you got a couple crew. I sent a few kids. They made $300 for day job, pretty good rate. And, immediately called me back the next Monday and said, look, this was amazing. They were so professional. They were so knowledgeable. Give me more of those students. So, realize that we're here at the university level to be a resource to all of you. And our students need that mentoring and they need that training. So is there a way for us at the universities in the state to partner up so that we can provide opportunities and then you have a pipeline for future crews? And that could be a great model to build the industry in the state.
And I'll just say, having tools at your fingertips is really important. So my colleague and I, we built a resource website for our students. Where do you find jobs? Where are the fellowships? What are the film festivals? Like real insider knowledge of the industry so that you can navigate and figure out where to go and how you make that leap or create that pathway from school into employment. And I think tenacity is really important. I think you have to learn and have this mindset of staying in the game because it's not going to be easy when you first come out. And, get one job. And then even if you have a little, pause in getting work, you have to keep at it and keep going to networking events and don't lose faith because like Roger said, once you start that momentum, it really does lead from here to there to there to there. It's like this, it's like a fire, igniting. So just have the faith, keep tenacious and stay in the game until that happens.
If it were under my control, I would keep all of you the whole night and ask you so many questions because I've got so much to learn from all of you. However, as much as I despise it, I'm being told that we're out of time and we can take 2 questions. Any takers?
We have time for one question. One.
Awesome question. That's an update. That's an update.
Pressure is on. One question asker.
I can take the pressure. I won't pick the person. Roger, please.
Oh,
Yeah. I'll put you on the spot.
yeah.
Oh, please.
You guys might be happy that it's only one question because it's a little bit of a tough question. So I've been lucky to be in the industry. I've done all right. Had someone come up to me as a real shot of getting into Emerson or NYU, like a real possibility of that. But they asked me, what should I do to get in this industry? And I didn't have an answer because it's going to be $250,000 worth of debt by the time they walk out. When I came up, I scratched and clawed my way through. I didn't have that debt. I don't know how to answer that question. How do I tell them to get in this industry knowing that they're going to be in such financial ruin the day they walk through the door thinking they're Spielberg?
Well, I don't know if I have a different answer, but I have a good answer. And one thing we pride ourselves on Connecticut State Community College is access and affordability. Thing I would tell some students, not all students, but some students that consider a community college. We have a media center that's got over $100,000 worth of equipment. We have all the industry standards. And sometimes folks don't realize you can find that around the corner of your local community college. So we do pride ourselves on access and affordability. And, we're certainly not NYU, but there's a lot of things that we do well. And I would say know your choices and be smart. And the last thing I'll add is if anyone promises you a job, ask them if they're a hiring manager. It'd be really, ask them to be very honest with you. I think sometimes university to careers statistics and connections are a little bit overdone. And you have to be really smart as you navigate those waters as a student or a potential student or a potential professional. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. I think we don't have time for any more questions. That's a very clear sign.